the GPS, the Global Positioning System constellation. This is operated by our U.S. airmen. It is 40 satellites strong, 40 satellites in orbit, and it supports not only precision, position navigation and timing, which is very important for our military users, but it also supports 3 billion civilian users worldwide. Today, U.S. airmen are providing 2/3 of America's nuclear deterrence. We're performing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, as well as strike missions in Iraq and Syria in the fight against ISIL. And of course, we're very focused on partnering with our European allies to reassure and ultimately to deter aggression that threatens all of us. And NATO is the cornerstone, not just of transatlantic security, but in many ways, I believe it's the cornerstone for global security. And let me give you just a few examples. When the leaders of the NATO alliance met last week in Warsaw, they discussed at great length the alliance security posture in the face of what the communique of NATO ultimately called the arc of insecurity and instability along NATO's periphery and beyond. The NATO leaders acknowledged that the alliance faces a range of security challenges and threats that both originate from the east and from the south. Threats from state and non-state actors, from military forces, and from terrorist, cyber, and hybrid attacks. The leaders identified Russia as a source of regional instability that fundamentally challenges the alliance and damages Euro-Atlantic security. Equally important was the NATO leaders' declaration that the alliance does not seek confrontation with and certainly poses no threat to Russia. NATO will continue to be transparent, predictable, and resolute. However, and I think most importantly, NATO cannot and will not compromise on the principles and values on which the alliance and security in Europe and North America rest. The leaders declared that the alliance's essential mission is to ensure that the alliance remains an unparalleled community of freedom, peace, security, and shared values, including individual liberty, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. It is these same principles and values that inspired the historic transformation across all of Europe, including right here in Bulgaria a quarter of a century ago. And it's these same principles and values that underpin the strong partnership and the cooperation that we have today between the U.S. and Bulgaria. Now let me put this partnership and cooperation in a broader context. We're working together with Bulgaria and other allies to strengthen our capabilities, our plans, our posture, and our investments. In the case of the U.S., next year the U.S. will increase our funding for what we call the European Reassurance Initiative. The amount of money we will devote to this is $3.4 billion, which by way of comparison is 4 times larger than the amount we devoted to this program a year ago. The funds will be used to increase capability, readiness, and responsiveness of NATO forces through training and exercises, improved infrastructure, and the pre-positioning of U.S. equipment in Europe. Air power, which is my line, is certainly part of this mix. For the Air Force, this initiative has enabled us to deploy, for example, F-16s and A-10s here to Europe, as well as an F-22 training detachment. All of these things, of course, are on a rotational basis. First, the Allies committed to strengthening NATO's defense and deterrence posture by enhancing our forward presence on the eastern flank, building upon that European Reassurance Initiative that I spoke about a moment ago. Second, NATO agreed that under the enhanced forward presence concept, 4 allies will deploy a battalion-sized unit to each of the Baltic states plus Poland. And as President Obama announced, the U.S. will take the lead in Poland. We'll deploy a battalion of American soldiers there. The United Kingdom will take the lead in Estonia. Germany will take the lead in Lithuania. And Canada will take the lead in Latvia. This ultimately will mean on the order of 4,000 additional NATO troops will be in the region on a rotational basis. The Allies agreed on the need to boost our intelligence sharing and early warning mechanisms so that we can improve our situational awareness and ultimately deter, prevent, and defend against hybrid threats, including cyber. If you go back about 6 months, hackers who had possible ties to the Kremlin disrupted Ukraine's power grid and caused blackouts for hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. So at the summit, the allies made clear that the cyber defense pledge is to commit to enhancing their national networks and infrastructures so that we don't see a repeat of a situation like what occurred in the Ukraine.